Part 35. The Prince longs for me every night after mastering thought reading. Author, Gongzi Yun Si. Chapter 341. Why did she forget to put away her little clothes? Qingying did the same and didn't even remind her to pack it up. Now is not the time to let the dog emperor know. The queen took a few steps forward and took away the small clothes from Emperor Dog's hand. I asked Qingying to do this when I had nothing to do. The queen's guilty actions were seen as embarrassing in the emperor's eyes, and he praised without hesitation, "This little dress is very beautiful." The queen snorted in her heart, "You are discerning," and then she looked at the little clothes in her hand proudly. "Qingying and I made these for our precious grandson. Isn't it beautiful?" She really looked forward to the birth of her precious grandson and wearing the clothes made by her grandmother. When the emperor saw that the queen was silent, he stretched out his arms from behind to hug her, and put his hand on her belly. He felt that her belly seemed to be bigger. "Queen." The sudden tenderness made the queen startled. The dog emperor had been too gentle and considerate these days. "But I will still favor Hejiu." 2 days later, Shen Shuwei didn't see Xiao Jinyan come back. When Xiao Jinyan came, she asked doubtfully, "Didn't you say His Highness will return to Beijing in 5 days? Today is already the 6th day." Xiao Jinyu also looked confused. "I don't know, maybe I was delayed on the way." Shen Shuwei looked at Xiao Jinyu and felt that he was a little unreliable. "Then who did you hear that His Highness can return to Beijing in 5 days? Xiao Jinyu said in a volume that only 2 people could hear, "My father said it, I overheard it secretly." Shen Shuwei. She thought Xiao Jinyu had his own information channel, but it turned out that he was eavesdropping. Xiao Jinyu clenched the folding fan in his hand and came over with a smile, "Sister-in-law, do you miss my brother?" Shen Shuwei held her chin with her hands and looked at Xiao Jinyu with her beautiful starry eyes. "I wonder what happened to your highness." Xiao Jinyu said, "My brother has indeed been away for a long time this time. I miss my brother very much." Shen Shuwei. Chengzi ran all the way in and saw Xiao Jinyu lying on the window sill. She was startled at first. "Little master, Chang Liangyuan is here." Shen Shuwei asked in confusion, "What is she here for?" "Sister-in-law, I'm leaving first." Xiao Jinyu was anxious to go back and continue making wooden horses. Not long after Xiao Jinyu left, Chang Liangyuan walked in and saw Shen Shuwei sitting on the couch. She stepped forward and said, "Shen Liangdi." Shen Shuwei was eating mung bean cake. "Why is Chang Liangyuan here?" Chang Liangyuan said softly, "We are all sisters. Of course we have to move around frequently. The queen has been so diligent in visiting Xiaoxiang Pavilion these days. She comes here almost every day. I heard that she not only brings food but also an imperial doctor. All kinds of actions are too puzzling. There must be something fishy in it." Chengzi on the side looked at Chang Liangyuan, who came uninvited, and the weasel paid New Year's greetings to the rooster, which was unkind. "Even my own sisters? Who is your sister?" Shen Chu took a bite of the mung bean cake and said, "I have a sister named Shen Mingzhu, who is now in the cold palace." Chang Liangyuan's face looked a little ugly, and he actually compared her with Shen Mingzhu in the cold palace. "Is she worthy of Shen Mingzhu? Shen Liangdi, do you dislike me coming to chat with you to relieve your boredom?" Shen Chu said softly, "I said I dislike it. Will you still come?" Chang Liangyuan's face froze. She always felt that Shen Shuwei had something wrong with his brain. How could he be so straightforward when chatting? There was absolutely no way to answer the call. Shen Liangdi is good at joking. His Highness has not returned yet. I am also afraid that Shen Liangdi will be bored, so I came to chat with Shen Liangdi to relieve his boredom. Chang Liangyuan, do you think I look bored? Shen Shuwei said, stuffing the last half of the mung bean cake into his mouth and eating it, with a look of satisfaction on his face. Chang Liangyuan clenched the handkerchief in her hand and forced out a smile. "I saw that Shen Liangdi's face didn't look good. After all, Xiaoxiang Pavilion and Leng Palace are adjacent to each other, and I heard that it is haunted. Shen Liangdi may not be able to sleep well every night, right? Shen Chu said slightly, I have lived here for 5 months and have never seen Chang Lianjiayuan's eyes so powerful that she can see ghosts. At this time, concubine Su waved her handkerchief and walked in. If you don't do something bad, you won't be afraid of ghosts knocking on the door. Chang Liangyuan, on the other hand, has she done something bad and even ghosts come to her door? As soon as she learned that Chang Liangyuan had come to Xiaoxiang Pavilion, concubine Su rushed over without stopping. The scheming female watch must have bad intentions. Sure enough, when I first arrived, I heard that Chang Liangyuan and Shen Liangdi were haunted by ghosts and couldn't sleep well every night. Shen Chuwei saw concubine Su coming, and looking at her posture, she was ready to hit her. Chang Liangyuan saw that concubine Su had also arrived and helped Shen Liangdi speak. She stood up and said, Concubine Su, I'm just worried about Shen Liangdi. Concubine Su said meaningfully, it turns out that you are worried about others being haunted by ghosts and unable to sleep at night. Then I hope Chang Liangyuan can also knock on the door of ghosts in the middle of the night and unable to sleep at night. Chang Lianjiayuan's face suddenly turned green. Concubine Su's mouth was really mean. How come she didn't die from the plague? Concubine Su, we are all sisters, can't we talk to each other nicely? Concubine Su said, I only have 2 older brothers above me, and only 1 younger brother below me. How come I have a sister? Chang Lianjiayuan's face looked a little ugly, we are all His Highness's women, we can't be so different. Concubine Su asked, didn't Mr. Chang Liangyuan share it? Chang Liangyuan was so angry by concubine Su that her face turned green like a frog. Coming out of the house, the sun is shining outside. Chang Liangyuan has not yet come out of her frustration and anger. She was about to leave with her handkerchief tightly in her hand and a dignified and elegant step. She saw a touch of pink and turned her head to look and found that it was a small dress. How could there be children's clothes in Xiaoxiang Pavilion? Huaixiang saw Chang Liangyuan standing still and called out in confusion, young master. Chang Liangyuan retracted her puzzled gaze and said, go back. The sunny days in recent days suddenly ushered in a heavy rain, which dared to take away the summer heat. Shen Chuwei was a little sleepy and a little greedy. Some people used to say that she was like a pregnant woman, wanting to eat this and that, but she didn't think so. Now she is a pregnant woman, and she is really greedy. I haven't eaten the stir-fried crayfish, so I have been thinking about it. Concubine Su ran in at this time, and her purple clothes were stained with some rain, which dripped on the ground as she walked. Shen Chuwei asked, it's raining so hard, why are you here? I can't stay at home, so I came to chat with you. Concubine Su patted the rain off her body, then she came to sit on the couch with her skirt lifted. Shen Chuwei was feeling sleepy, so of course she had to listen to gossip to kill time. What gossip? Concubine Su leaned close to Shen Chuwei's ear and whispered, the emperor was cuckolded. Shen Chuwei was stunned when she heard this. She thought that only TV dramas had such plots, but she didn't expect that it really happened in ancient times. Is there really someone who dares to cuckold the emperor? Chu Myron, who has been alone in an empty room for several years, was infatuated with her and hooked up with the guards. The emperor had long forgotten about Chu Myron, but Chu Myron got pregnant, and her 6-month belly was discovered by others. Concubine Su told Shen Chuwei everything she heard, and she described it vividly, as if she was there. As the emperor's woman, she must look good. Is the head guard handsome? Forgive her for always focusing on something different. Concubine Su recalled the gossip she had heard and came to a conclusion, he looks average, and he certainly can't be compared with the emperor. Although the emperor is 45 years old, he is well maintained, has no beer belly, and has a good figure. He is naturally handsome, and his age will only add to the charm of a mature man to the emperor. It is said that if you die under the peony flowers, you will be romantic even as a ghost. It's a pity for an average man, of course, cheating during marriage is indeed undesirable. In ancient times, there was only one ending for cuckolding the emperor, and that was death. Concubine Su said again, the emperor was furious, and concubine Chu was dragged to the cold palace by the guards and beaten to death with sticks, and the guards were also executed. Shen Shuwei was not surprised by the expected result. Concubine Su originally used gossip to chat and relieve boredom, and that was it. She looked at Shen Shuwei's belly again, which was round and round. She curiously reached out and touched it, and her belly was round and hard. Will two babies feel stuffy in such a small place? No, twins are usually smaller than single babies, Shen Shuwei answered briefly, because no matter how much she said, concubine Su would not understand. Oh, concubine Su still felt it was amazing. The story of concubine Chu and the guards had long been spread throughout the palace. Chang Liangyuan naturally knew about it. The old people in the palace said that concubine Chu's walking posture was different from that of ordinary people, which meant she was pregnant. She suddenly thought of the last time she saw Shen Liangdi walking, and the small clothes in Xiaoxiang pavilion. Could Shen Liangdi be pregnant? The prince longs for me every night after mastering thought reading. Author, Gongzi Yun Si. Chapter 342. The more Chang Liangyuan thought about it, the more likely it was. Otherwise, how could there be clothes? And her aunt kept running to Xiaoxiang pavilion, and she brought the imperial doctor with her. I'm afraid she also knew about this. In order to prove that Shen Liangdi was pregnant, Chang Liangyuan specially sent a capable servant to find out the news. The little eunuch was someone close to Chang Liangyuan's brother. He entered the palace to repay his gratitude. He knew Kung Fu and was also Chang Liangyuan's confidant. The little eunuch was guarding in the corner. When he saw Qin Xiao carrying something into Xiaoxiang pavilion, he tried his best to hide himself because he knew that Qin Xiao was good at Kung Fu. Qin Xiao was still delivering food to Shen Shuwei this time. The little eunuch found that Qin Xiao stayed in there for a long time before coming out. He hurriedly held his breath to avoid being discovered. Don't buy heavy flavors next time you buy things. The young lady is pregnant now, and it's easy to get constipated if you eat. Chengzi just saw that the food Qin Xiao bought was all spicy. The young lady is now 5 months pregnant. How can she eat spicy food often? I understand. I won't buy it next time, Qin Xiao said and strode away. Chengzi was about to ask Qin Xiao why he always ran away after giving her something, but before she could ask, he was gone. This man is so strange, he always ran away, and he ran very fast. Qin Xiao, who had already run far away, secretly thanked himself for running fast, otherwise Chengzi might ask him something. After Chengzi went in, the eunuch came out from the corner and returned to Xinlan Palace. He told Chang Liangyuan what he saw and heard. Chang Liangyuan asked, did you hear it clearly? Shen Liangdi is really pregnant. I am sure, Chengzi said it himself, the eunuch replied. Chang Liangyuan sneered, Your Highness has been gone for so long, and you are pregnant but hiding it. This child is probably not Your Highness. Shen Liangdi is really scheming. No wonder my aunt is so nice to Shen Liangdi all of a sudden. It must be Shen Liangdi who said that the child is Your Highness. My aunt has always wanted a grandson, so she was easily fooled by Shen Liangdi. My aunt is also confused. It is obvious that Shen Liangdi has bad intentions when she hides it. How can my aunt believe what Shen Liangdi said? Chang Liangyuan ordered, you stay in Xiaoxiang pavilion these days, don't let anyone find out. I know, the little eunuch responded and left. Chang Liangyuan played with the comb on the dressing table. The depression she had been feeling for days was finally relieved a little. As long as she found evidence of Shen Liangdi and Qin Xiao's affair, Shen Liangdi would be finished this time. The emperor hated women who did not keep their husband's chastity the most. Today, the queen brought a tonic soup to visit Shen Shuwei again. Even though the dog emperor kept telling her, she still gave her daughter-in-law the soup without hesitation. Fortunately, the queen herself was also an experienced person. She only made one bowl of soup, so Shen Shuwei would not feel sick when she drank it. Tomorrow, the queen will go to the White Horse Temple to burn incense and pray for blessings. I originally wanted to take you with me, but I was afraid that you would be tired on the road, so I went alone. The queen prayed for the safety of Shen Shuwei and her child, and also for her own peace of mind, otherwise she would always worry. Shen Shuwei thanked the queen for her thoughtful consideration. On the days of fasting and chanting Buddha in the White Horse Temple, she, who loves meat and spicy food, really couldn't stay there. It's still the queen who is thoughtful. I really have a lot of inconveniences. The queen smiled and said, "You rest assured." Shen Shuwei nodded vigorously, "Queen, I will." The queen left Xiaoxiang Pavilion with peace of mind. At night, the queen told the dog emperor that she was going to the White Horse Temple to burn incense and pray for blessings. The dog emperor directly refused. "You are not allowed to go." The queen looked at the dog emperor in confusion. "I am just going to burn incense and pray for blessings, why don't you allow me to go?" The emperor glanced at the queen's belly and said, "I don't allow it, can your body be bumpy?" "What's wrong with my body?" The queen touched her belly. "Didn't she grow some meat, is it that serious?" Seeing that the queen was determined to do it, the emperor simply said directly, "You are pregnant now, how can you run around?" The queen was stunned when she heard it. "You are old now, and you are finally pregnant, how can you run around? After you give birth, can't I accompany you to the White Horse Temple to burn incense and pray for blessings?" the emperor said in a slow voice. The queen looked at the dog emperor in confusion. "How did the emperor know that I was pregnant? I didn't even know when I was pregnant." The emperor said, "Queen, do you still want to hide it from me? A few days ago, I saw you holding your belly slowly, and your belly was bigger than usual. Isn't this a sign of pregnancy?" The queen was stunned for a few seconds, and suddenly remembered the gentleness and thoughtfulness of the dog emperor these days. He always liked to touch her belly at night. So he thought she was pregnant? The emperor said again, "If this baby is a princess, it would be better. I already have 2 sons. The queen looked at the dog emperor with an expectant look on her face. Although she didn't want to disappoint him, she couldn't bear the crime of deceiving the emperor. "I'm not pregnant. I held my belly because I was full." The emperor, "Nonsense, you even made clothes for our daughter." The queen knew that it was useless to explain, so she suggested, "The emperor, please ask the imperial doctor to take the pulse and you will know." The emperor was stunned, but still ordered Eunuch Li to call the imperial doctor. It was imperial physician Wen who came. After checking the emperor's pulse, the emperor could not wait to ask, "How is it?" "The empress is not pregnant," imperial physician Wen said cautiously. The princess whom the emperor had waited for so long was gone just like that. How could he accept it? He sat on the chair and looked at the queen's belly. The princess he had been looking forward to for so long, was gone. The queen looked at the dog emperor's appearance and waved her hand towards Dr. Wen. "Dr. Wen, you picked up the medicine box and exited with understanding." The emperor was heartbroken that the princess he had been waiting for more than a month was gone. The queen tugged on the dog emperor's sleeve, "Your Majesty." The emperor turned his head away from looking at the queen, not showing the slightest sadness, but he was actually very sad in his heart. There are still examples of women in the palace using fake pregnancies to compete for favor. The queen felt it was necessary to explain, "Your Majesty, this is not my fault. I have never said anything about being pregnant." The emperor glared at the queen, "You still mention it?" The queen immediately shut up. After an unexpected incident, the queen took the honor guard to the White Horse Temple to pray for her daughter-in-law and grandchildren as she wished, leaving the emperor secretly sad for a long time. Today, Qin Xiao bought water chestnut cake and Teiku smoked pigeon. Shen Shuwei had never tasted these two delicacies before, but they tasted good. Qin Xiao bought something for Chengzi again this time, and he planned to give it to Chengzi and run away. As a result, Chengzi also learned the lesson. When Qin Xiao came over, he grabbed Qin Xiao's sleeves and stopped him from running away. Chengzi raised her little face and looked at Qin Xiao with confusion, and asked, "Why do you run away every time you deliver something?" Qin Xiao just took out the things and handed them to Chun 11 before he came. "I'm afraid you won't want it." "Chengzi, so you ran away?" Qin Xiao told the truth. "If I run away, why don't you just accept it? Then why do you give me things every once in a while? I almost feel guilty after taking so many things." Chengzi knew that no reward would be given without reward. Qin Xiao gave a lot of things back and forth, and she felt really guilty. "I'll give it to you if you want. If you think it's inappropriate, just return the gift." Qin Xiao spoke straightforwardly, and even the return gift was justified and strong. Chengzi thought for a while, and it seemed reasonable to reciprocate the courtesy. "It's so cool." Qin Xiao put the thing in his hand into Chun 11's hand, "Then take it." Subconsciously turned around and left. Chengzi didn't have much strength, so she just watched Qin Xiao quickly walk out of Xiaoxiang Pavilion and disappear at the door. Ran away again. When the young eunuch saw Qin Xiao walking away, he got out of the corner, returned to Xinlan Hall, and told Chang Liangyuan everything he saw. Chang Liangyuan snorted. It seems that Shen Liangdi and Qin Xiao have an ulterior relationship. "Huaixiang, prepare yourself. I'm going to see the emperor." "Huaixiang, here." After lighting a stick of incense, Chang Liangyuan walked eagerly to the imperial study. The emperor had just finished reviewing the memorial, and when he thought that the daughter he had been looking forward to for so long was gone, he secretly felt sad again. Eunuch Li bowed and came in. "Your Majesty, Chang Liangyuan has something to do and wants to see the emperor." When the emperor heard about Chang Liangyuan, he refused coldly, "I am not free now." Eunuch Li had served the emperor for many years, and he knew he was unhappy when he heard this tone. He hesitated for a while, and then said, "Your Majesty, Chang Liangyuan said that there is something very important to report, which concerns the royal heirs." The emperor paused after hearing this, then raised his cold eyes to look at Eunuch Li. "Let her come in." Here not long after Eunuch Li left, Chang Liangyuan walked in. She knelt down and saluted, My concubine, see you, Your Majesty." "May Your Majesty be blessed with peace and prosperity." The emperor asked coldly, "Chang Liangyuan, do you have anything important to say here?" Chang Liangyuan slowly raised her head and saw Long Yan shrinking. "Your Majesty, I discovered that Shen Liangdi is suddenly pregnant." When the emperor heard this, he was startled at first, as if he couldn't believe it. "What did you say?" "Shen Liangdi is pregnant." Chang Liangyuan's voice was affirmative. "Go back to the emperor, it's absolutely true." The emperor's depressed mood just now eased a lot, and he couldn't help but be delighted by Long Yan. "I didn't expect that the prince already has an heir. This is such a happy event. No wonder the queen runs to Xiaoxiang Pavilion every day. It turns out that Shen Liangdi is pregnant. The same goes for the queen. Why didn't you tell me about such a big happy event?" The emperor felt indescribably happy at this time. When Chang Liangyuan saw that the emperor was so happy, she sneered secretly in her heart. If she was happy now, the emperor would be furious later. "Your Majesty, it has been more than 5 months since His Majesty's conquest. Shen Liangdi's pregnancy seems to be 4 months, and her belly is not as big as May." The smile on the emperor's lips froze, and he glanced coldly at Chang Liangyuan below. "What do you mean by this?" Chang Liangyuan felt a chill running down her spine, and she said cautiously, "Your Majesty, Shen Liangdi has been hiding her pregnancy, so there must be something fishy in it. I met Shen Liangdi by chance a few days ago, and her belly looked like a 4-month pregnancy." Chen, I was worried that something was wrong with Shen Liangdi, so I came to report it to the Emperor. P.S. Second update on April 28th. Dear babies, there were a lot less monthly tickets and recommended tickets yesterday. I found that if 2 chapters are updated in a row, monthly tickets and recommendations will be much less. I want to publish the next update separately. The monthly tickets and recommended tickets are really too few. Falling off the monthly vote list, heartbroken. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The prince longs for me every night after mastering thought reading. Author, Gongzi Yun Si. Chapter 343. When the emperor heard this, he suddenly thought that bitch Chu Myron had an affair with a guard and was pregnant with a child. His joyful mood was instantly replaced by anger. The emperor looked at Chang Liangyuan coldly. Chang Liangyuan, is what you said true? Chang Liangyuan's voice was affirmative. Back to the emperor, everything I said is true. The emperor's sharp eyes were brewing with overwhelming anger. Eunuch Li, call Shen Liangdi over to me. Here Eunuch Li knew something serious was going on and hurriedly exited. A flash of joy flashed in Chang Liangyuan's eyes. Shen Liangdi, now that your aunt is gone, no one will protect you. You are really finished this time. Xiaoxiang Pavilion. After Shen Shuwei had eaten and drank enough, he lay down on the couch and fell asleep almost instantly. She vaguely heard Chengzi calling her. Little master, wake up quickly, wake up quickly. Something serious has happened. Shen Shuwei opened her eyes with difficulty and saw Chengzi with an anxious look on her face. She was so sleepy, what happened? Chengzi was anxious like ants on a hot pot. Eunuch Li said that the emperor wants to see you, and I'm afraid something bad will happen to me. Shen Shuwei was stunned for a moment when he heard this. It was nothing serious. Eunuch Li would not come to Xiaoxiang Pavilion. No wonder Chengzi was so anxious. It's okay, let's go and take a look. It's not okay not to take a look, because the emperor's order is difficult. Little master, I will help you wrap your belly with a cloth. Chengzi was about to get the cloth but was stopped by Shen Shuwei. There's no need to cover up. I feel that the emperor won't see us for no reason. Instead of covering up, it's better to be generous. Chengzi said worriedly, but your highness, the queen and the queen are not here. What if the emperor makes things difficult for me? There is no one to support me. Shen Shuwei patted Chengzi's shoulder comfortingly. Don't be afraid, we didn't do anything bad. But Chengzi was still a little worried. Eunuch Li was still waiting outside, and the two of them hurried out of the back room without daring to linger for too long. Shen Shuwei has a petite figure and wears loose clothes. Her pregnancy belly is not very obvious. Eunuch Li glanced twice before speaking. Shen Liangdi, the emperor has something urgent to do, and summons Shen Liangdi. Because it was a matter in the East Palace, it was not convenient to be in the imperial study room. Even if the queen was away, the emperor still chose to handle the matter in Fenji Palace. Shen Chu said softly, I'd like to help Eunuch Li lead the way. Eunuch Li flicked his fly whisk and walked in front. Shen Shuwei followed Eunuch Li leisurely to Fenji Palace. Eunuch Li bowed forward and said, Your Majesty, Shen Liangdi is here. Shen Shuwei stepped into the dormitory hall and saw another person standing in the center of the hall, Chang Liangyuan. At this time, Chang Liangyuan was looking over, with an unknown smile in her eyes. Shen Shuwei averted his gaze and took a few steps forward. Because of his stomach, he knelt down a little slower. Chengzi supported him and knelt down together. The emperor lowered his eyes and looked at Shen Shuwei's movements. He could tell the problem at a glance. He looked at her belly. Because of the kneeling posture, he could see the bulge. Shen Chu kowtowed slightly and said, May your majesty be blessed with peace and prosperity. Chengzi also kowtowed, May the emperor be blessed with peace and prosperity. The emperor looked at Shen Shuwei, with overwhelming anger brewing in his eyes. He asked coldly, Shen Liangdi, Chang Liangyuan said you are pregnant? Whose? Shen Shuwei said respectfully, back to the emperor, I am indeed pregnant. Of course it is your highness's. Chang Liangyuan snorted, Shen Liangdi, the queen has a good heart and is fooled by you. The emperor is wise and decisive, but you can't fool him. His highness has been on a personal expedition for more than 4 months, how can it be his highness's? Shen Chu slightly raised his head and looked at Chang Liangyuan, and retorted, I have been blessed for 5 months, why is it not his highness's? Although I have never experienced pregnancy, I have seen pregnant women whose 5-month-old belly is much bigger than yours. After Chang Liangyuan finished speaking, she looked at the emperor and said, Your Majesty, please call the imperial doctor to check Shen Liangdi's pulse and we will know. Shen Shuwei nodded in agreement when he heard the words, I also think it is most appropriate to let the imperial doctor diagnose the pulse. Chengzi was anxious to death. Chang Liangyuan was really disgusted. She actually said that the young master was not pregnant with his highness's child. At first, he didn't believe Chang Liangyuan when she said that Shen Liangdi was pregnant, because the imperial doctor's pulse diagnosis said that Shen Liangdi had difficulty in getting pregnant. Who would believe it when she suddenly said that Shen Liangdi was pregnant? Now seeing it with her own eyes, and Shen Liangdi admitting it herself, it shows that Shen Liangdi can still be pregnant with a child. Unfortunately, the child in Shen Liangdi's belly may not be the prince's. The emperor also felt that what Chang Liangyuan said was reasonable, and he would know if he checked it out. He ordered in a cold voice, Eunuch Li, call the imperial doctor over. Here Eunuch Li took the order and asked for the imperial doctor. In the hall, it was so quiet that you could clearly hear a pin drop. Shen Shuwei had been kneeling on the ground. She had never knelt for such a long time since she had been here for so long, but she couldn't get up unless the emperor said something. After a while, Eunuch Li came in with the imperial doctor. The imperial doctor came forward and bowed in salute, I am here to see you, your majesty. May your majesty be blessed with peace and prosperity. The emperor ordered in a cold voice, how many months have you been diagnosing Shen Liangdi's pulse in Yuxi? Wei Chen obeys the order. The imperial doctor took a few steps forward and came to Shen Shuwei. After putting down the medicine box, he took out a square handkerchief and placed it on Shen Shuwei's wrist, and then checked his pulse. Shen Shuwei cooperated unconditionally throughout the process. The emperor looked at Shen Liangdi in the palace, still somewhat expecting the child to be the prince. The prince had no children, so it was not a bad thing to have him now. After the imperial doctor finished diagnosing the pulse, the emperor couldn't wait to ask, what was the result? The imperial doctor lowered his eyebrows and nodded, back to the emperor, Shen Liangdi has been blessed for more than 4 months. The emperor, who had just experienced the incident of a Chu beauty getting pregnant from an affair with a guard, was furious when he heard what the imperial doctor said. He cannot tolerate unruly women. Shen Liangdi, it is in vain that the queen loves you so much. You not only deceived the queen, but also betrayed her trust. Who is the man who had an affair with you? Why don't you recruit him truthfully? Chun 11 was so angry that she wanted to yell, but in front of the emperor, she could only endure it. Your Majesty, it has been more than 5 months since my young master got married, and it happened not long after his highness left. Shen Chu glanced at the imperial doctor slightly. His hair was gray, and he was telling lies with his eyes open. Your Majesty, I am pregnant in 5 months. The imperial doctor must have made a wrong diagnosis. The emperor sneered, Shen Liangdi, he is the best medical doctor in the imperial hospital, and you actually question him. Shen Chu said softly, I'm just telling the truth. If the emperor doesn't believe me, you can find another imperial doctor to diagnose your pulse. The emperor looked at Shen Liangdi coldly and saw that her back was straight and she didn't look guilty at all. He pondered for a moment and then said, "Eunuch Li, go find the imperial doctor again." "Here." Eunuch Li left again to find the imperial doctor. This time, Eunuch Li brought two imperial doctors, one was imperial physician Wen and the other was imperial physician Feng. The two imperial doctors came forward to bow to the emperor. "I am here to see you, your majesty." The emperor ordered coldly, "You guys, check Shen Liangdi's pulse. She's been pregnant for several months." The two of them said in unison, "I obey the order." Dr. Feng was the first to diagnose the pulse. After some pulse diagnosis, he got the result. "Your Majesty, Shen Liangdi has been blessed for more than 4 months." Chengzi was shocked. This was impossible. Not only Chengzi was shocked, but Shen Chuwei was also shocked. One of the imperial doctors opened his eyes and told lies, and two of the imperial doctors opened their eyes and told lies. They couldn't even wash themselves away after they jumped into the Yellow River. The emperor suddenly grasped the armrest of the throne and looked at Shen Liangdi with eyes as cold as frost. "Shen Liangdi, what else do you have to say?" Shen Chuwei said, "Your Majesty, my concubine is indeed blessed with more than 5 months." The emperor said sternly, "One of the imperial doctors said that the diagnosis was wrong. Are the two imperial doctors wrong? I don't want to hear your sophistry." He then looked at Chang Liangyuan and asked coldly, "Chang Liangyuan, do you know who the man who had an affair with Shen Liangdi is?" Chang Liangyuan looked at Shen Liangdi's indefatigable appearance. The long-standing unhappiness was relieved now. "Shen Liangdi, you have no chance to stand up this time." Back to the emperor, "It's His Highness's personal bodyguard Qin Xiao. Qin Xiao has been in and out of Xiaoxiang Pavilion frequently after His Highness left. He buys a lot of things every time he goes there." Imperial Dr. Wen stepped forward and bowed in salute, "Your Majesty, I have something to say." Chang Liangyuan looked at him with a half-smile but not a smile. "Dr. Wen, I heard that you are very close to Shen Liangdi. Could it be that you were bribed?" "Wei Chen has not been bribed by Shen Liangdi, the queen." Dr. Wen wanted to explain, but was interrupted sharply by the emperor. "Shut up." Dr. Wen hurriedly knelt down and spoke boldly, "Your Majesty, Shen Liangdi is indeed blessed with more than 5 months to live." At this time, the emperor simply couldn't listen to what Imperial Dr. Wen said. He ordered, "Come here, take Imperial Dr. Wen down." Imperial Dr. Wen wanted to say a few words, but was pulled down by 2 imperial guards. The emperor ordered again, "Come, take Shen Liangdi." "Father." Xiao Jinyu strode in with a look of urgency on his face. When the emperor saw Xiao Jinyu, he was a little confused. Why are you here?" Xiao Jinyu stepped forward to greet him, "If my son doesn't come, will my father take action against Shen Liangdi? That is the child of the crown prince's brother and my father's grandson. How can my father treat his grandson like this?" Shen Chuwei looked at Xiao Jinyu, who fell from the sky. He was indeed Xiao Jinyu's younger brother. He came in time. You are still young and don't understand." The emperor glanced at Shen Chuwei. Shen Chuwei said that she was very innocent. The emperor continued, "It has been nearly 5 months since the prince left the capital, and Shen Liangdi has been blessed for more than 4 months. Do you think this child is still the prince's? Shen Liangdi is clearly pregnant for more than 5 months." Xiao Jinyu came to Shen Chuwei as he spoke and said in a voice that only the two of them could hear, "Sister-in-law, let me help you up." Although Shen Chuwei wanted to remember it, but the emperor was looking at him with cold eyes, she asked in a low voice, "Aren't you afraid that the emperor will blame you?" Xiao Jinyu chuckled twice, "Don't be afraid, my father, the emperor and my mother love me the most and are not willing to punish me severely." When Shen Chuwei heard this, it turned out that people who are favored can be confident. She then let Xiao Jinyu help herself up. Xiao Jinyu glanced at the 2 imperial doctors present again, pointed at their noses, and almost started beating them. "Which quack doctor said that? Stand up for me. Are you an old fool, or are you just blind to money? The prince longs for me every night after mastering thought reading." Author, Gongzi Yunsi. Chapter 344. Chapter 344. Your death is coming, and the dog emperor will also be sad. The imperial doctors lowered their eyes quickly and dared not speak. Shen Shuwei couldn't help but give a thumbs up. "Xiao Jinyu always speaks the truth, I like it." The emperor reprimanded in a deep voice, You are so presumptuous." Xiao Jinyu slightly restrained his tone when he spoke, "Father, Shen Liangdi is pregnant with my nephew. Father does not recognize this grandson, but I recognize this nephew." The emperor looked at his son. His temper was exactly the same as the queen's when she was young, irritable and stubborn, and he still protected Shen Liangdi. Do you think I don't want Shen Liangdi to be pregnant with my grandson? But the fact is not, your mother was deceived by Shen Liangdi, don't be deceived. Father, my son, and mother are both adults, and we have the ability to distinguish right from wrong." Xiao Jinyu said and glanced at the imperial doctors again, grabbing one of them by the collar, and the posture was like beating someone. "Old fool, you said that Shen Liangdi was not pregnant with my nephew? Who gave you the courage to say that?" If the emperor was not present, Shen Shuwei would have wanted to applaud, "Xiao Jinyu is so cool." Chengzi felt a little comforted when she saw Xiao Jinyu protecting the young lady. She was really scared just now, afraid that the emperor would punish her without knowing the truth. "Prince Yu, How dare the old imperial physician speak?" He was already scared by Xiao Jinyu. Seeing that the old fool did not dare to speak, Xiao Jinyu let him go and grabbed another person's collar. "You are so young, you can't even take a pulse. Do you know what you are saying?" At this time, Xiao Jinyu was domineering and secretly proud. If the prince knew that I was protecting my sister-in-law like this, he would definitely praise him. Imperial physician Feng was so scared that he dared not say a word. The emperor looked at his son and was really getting bolder. He actually frightened people in public. I will handle this matter, you go back to me." Xiao Jinyu heard that the emperor was angry, so he had to loosen the collar of the imperial physician, and by the way, he tidied the collar of the imperial physician, and said with a smile, "Are you scared now? It's okay, this is nothing, when the truth comes out, your death will come." The imperial physician Feng's face was pale. The emperor slammed the low table angrily, and the teacup on the low table trembled. Do you really want me to have someone take you away?" Xiao Jinyu restrained his temper again and came to the emperor carefully. He looked at his father who was showing a dragon's majesty, stretched out his hand to calm the angry emperor, and said sincerely, "Father, don't be angry, it's not good to get angry." Shen Shuwei looked at the scene in front of him, and felt a sense of familiarity. It is said that the ears of a tiger cannot be touched, and Xiao Jinyu actually dared to calm the angry tiger, which was very courageous. The emperor looked at his son's behavior coldly, and suddenly thought of his son when he was a child, who was born like a girl. The queen dressed him in a beautiful skirt. When he was angry, everyone was afraid of him, except Yu, who lay on him and let him hug her. She also helped him to calm down and said in a baby voice, "Father, replenish your energy." Thinking of this, the emperor's anger subsided a lot. Standing properly, how can it be a disgrace? Yes, Father. Xiao Jinyu immediately stood up straight, as if it was not him who had just made a fuss in Fenji Palace. The emperor looked at his son's appearance and said, "Don't worry about this matter. What can I do anyway? No matter what, Shen Liangdi is the woman of the prince. This matter should be carefully questioned after the prince comes back." Without waiting for the emperor to speak, Xiao Jinyu brought up the queen again. "The relationship between mother and Shen Liangdi is very, very good. If father convicts without finding out the whole story, mother will definitely be very sad when she comes back. The emperor thought that the queen had been very good to Shen Liangdi these days, but she had been very cold to him, her husband. Is she sad? I am still sad. The daughter he had been waiting for so long is gone, isn't he sad? But what about the queen? She left me and went to the White Horse Temple. The emperor was getting angrier and angrier, but he had no choice. Now he saw his son protecting Shen Liangdi again. You is right. Xiao Jinyu's peach blossom eyes curved. Father also thinks that what I said is right. Can Shen Liangdi be released? Release her. The emperor glanced at Shen Liangdi. Now the evidence is conclusive. I am not executing her immediately, which is a leniency. Compared with the execution of Lady Chu for having an affair with the guard, Shen Liangdi is indeed being lenient now. Xiao Jinyu corrected fearlessly, father is only half right, the evidence now cannot prove that Shen Liangdi is guilty, and not executing her immediately shows that father is wise and decisive. The emperor snorted, don't talk nonsense in front of me. Xiao Jinyu smiled. Chang Liangyuan watched Xiao Jinyu protect Shen Liangdi so much and act so unrestrained in the palace. No wonder her mother said that Yu was the most favored among all the princes and was the most likely to be made the crown prince. Let her marry Prince Yu, and she will be the crown princess for sure. She fell in love with Xiao Jinyan at first sight, so she refused. Later, the emperor made Xiao Jinyan the crown prince, which was beyond everyone's expectations. It also made her believe that the original choice was correct. Today, Prince Yu was simply spoiled to the point of lawlessness. Seeing that the emperor was about to be persuaded by Xiao Jinyu, Chang Liangyuan couldn't help it. Prince Yu, I know that you have a very good relationship with Shen Liangdi, and I also know that you are kind and easy to be deceived. There is solid evidence that Shen Liangdi had an affair with the guards. If His Highness knew about it, how sad would he be? Xiao Jinyu looked at Chang Liangyuan coldly and snorted, Brother Prince will indeed be sad that someone actually wants to murder his flesh and blood. Prince Yu, my loyalty to His Highness can be seen from the bright moon. If I don't expose Shen Liangdi's affair with the guard now, His Highness will only be more heartbroken when he finds out in the future. After Chang Liangyuan finished speaking, she knelt on the ground and kowtowed to the emperor, Your Majesty, everything I said is true and there is absolutely no deception. Xiao Jinyu said, Father, I think. The emperor coldly interrupted Xiao Jinyu's next words, that's enough. Xiao Jinyu had no choice but to close his mouth and glance sideways at Chang Liangyuan. The emperor glanced at Shen Chuwei coldly. Shen Chuwei immediately lowered his eyes. Looking directly at Long Yan was a big sin. The emperor sternly ordered, Shen Liangdi is locked up in Xiaoxiang Pavilion and under strict supervision. We will wait until the truth is found out before taking action. Xiao Jinyu still wanted to plead for mercy, but was interrupted by the emperor's eyes, so he had to give up. Shen Chuwei was escorted back to Xiaoxiang Pavilion by the guards. This time it was not just as simple as being grounded, but also being imprisoned like a prisoner. The emperor then ordered, arrest the guards of Qin and interrogate them strictly. Chang Liangyuan watched Shen Liangdi being arrested, but she did not immediately convict and execute her. There was always a hidden danger. If her auntie came back, she would try to protect Shen Liangdi. She won't let this happen. Shen Liangdi must be prevented from turning over this time. Asterisk. Qin Xiao had just returned from Lu Zhiyan's place. He wanted to know who the beautiful girl he was going to marry was, so he had to prepare early, but Lu Zhiyan refused to tell him, but he was very anxious. On the way back, a group of guards will surround you. Come here, arrest Qin Xiao. When Qin Xiao saw that they were the imperial guards, only the emperor could call the imperial guards, he knew that they came under the emperor's order, so he did not refute. It wasn't until he entered the prison and was interrogated that Qin Xiao found out that someone had framed him for having an affair with Shen Liangdi. This is simply a big joke. No matter how Qin Xiao explained, no one believed him. What he faced was strict interrogation, which naturally required torture. In a place like Tianlao, anyone who comes in will have their bones broken and their skin peeled off. Xiaoxiang Pavilion. After Shen Shuwei was pushed in by the guards, the door was closed with force and there was a bang sound. Then there was the sound of locks being locked. Chengzi had already burst into tears. "Little master, what should we do now? If the emperor completely believes Chang Lianjiayuan's words, little master, we will be doomed." Shen Shuwei looked at Chengzi who was crying. She patted her shoulder and comforted her. Okay, don't cry, don't cry. Aren't we fine now? But it will get worse soon. Chengzi burst into tears even more fiercely. "Little master, what should I do with the baby?" Shen Chu touched his belly slightly. "The baby said they are hungry." Chun 11's crying stopped suddenly and she looked at Shen Shuwei's belly. She wiped away her tears and said, "I'll go cook now. We can't let the baby go hungry." Shen Shuwei nodded vigorously and smiled. "The baby said he wants to eat braised pork." Chengzi burst into tears and smiled. The little master wanted to eat it himself, but he said that the baby wanted to eat it, which was true. This slave is going to make braised pork. Although Xiaoxiang Pavilion is now locked, there is still a surplus of food in the small kitchen, and there is still some meat, which has been kept cold with ice cubes. During lunch, Shen Shuwei ate several mouthfuls of braised pork, and glanced at Chun 11 from time to time. Seeing that Chun 11 didn't let her eat in moderation as usual, she ate without fear. The result of eating and drinking indiscriminately is that you are full. Shen Shuwei lay on the couch and rubbed his belly with satisfaction. After Chengzi put away the dishes, she came to the couch and saw Shen Shuwei lying on the couch leisurely, not worried at all. "My lord, we have to find a way to solve the dangerous problem before us." Shen Chu nodded slightly. "What you said makes sense." Chengzi looked at Shen Shuwei expectantly after hearing this. Then, "Has the young master thought of a solution?" "Well." Shen Chu shook his head slightly. "Not yet." Chengzi's newly ignited hope was instantly shattered. "I thought the young master had a solution." Shen Chu smiled awkwardly. In fact, her mind was in a state of confusion and she was very sleepy. Chun 11's eyes were full of worry. "My lord, will Qin Xiao be beaten into a trap?" Shen Chu said softly, "Probably not. Qin Xiao is the prince's personal bodyguard. Besides, he would rather die than surrender for something he has never done." Chengzi added, "I heard that the sky prison is terrifying. You have to break your bones and peel off your skin to get in. Even if Qin Xiao is a tough guy, he is too guilty." Shen Chu nodded slightly in agreement. "What you said makes sense. Who is not afraid of pain? It's just about whether you can bear it." She looked at Chengzi and said, "Let's find a way to give him some medicine." Chengzi pressed harder. "Master, how about anesthesia? This way he won't be afraid of pain when being tortured." Chengzi has followed Shen Shuwei for so long and knows the wonderful effects of anesthetics. It's not a problem what medicine to send. The problem is that we can't get out, so we have to have someone help us deliver it. Shen Shuwei was a little worried. "The prince longs for me every night after mastering thought reading." Author, Gongzi Iyun Si. Chapter 345. Chengzi felt a little worried after hearing this. She couldn't even go out, let alone deliver medicine to Qin Xiao. "What should we do, young lady?" Chengzi was so anxious that tears came out again. Shen Shuwei thought of Xiao Jinyu. "Wait a little longer, maybe Xiao Jinyu will come. Xiao Jinyu is Prince Yu, the emperor loves him, it should be easy for him to see Qin Xiao, then give him the medicine and let him deliver it to Qin Xiao." Chengzi seemed to see hope when she heard this, and wiped her tears. "Then we can only entrust our hope to Prince Yu." Chengzi was so worried about Qin Xiao, not only because she was worried that Qin Xiao would be forced to confess and harm the young lady. She thought Qin Xiao was a good person, and it was really a disaster from heaven. Shen Liangdi was suspected of having an affair with a guard, and it soon spread throughout the palace. In the East Palace, there was even more discussion. Shen Shuwei was favored at the beginning and people were jealous of her. Now that she has ended up like this, those jealous people are so happy to gloat. Li Liangyuan hasn't seen the prince for half a year. Hearing this news, she sighed. Shen Liangdi really failed His Highness. If His Highness treats me like this, I am willing to die with you. Isn't it? Your Highness dotes on her so much, but she actually has an affair with His Highness's personal guard? She cheated on His Highness? I really don't understand what's in Shen Liangdi's mind. Su Chenjui turned his head to look at Chang Liangyuan, and said with a flattering smile, "It's still Chang Liangyuan who has a sharp eye and discovered Shen Liangdi's scandal in time." Chang Liangyuan held the teacup and sipped the tea elegantly. "I just feel sorry for your Highness. How sad must you be to be so sincere and wrong?" Su Chenjui repeatedly agreed, "Chang Liangyuan is right, Shen Liangdi is completely finished this time." When concubine Su learned about this, she was so angry that she even threw the bowl in her hand. "Chang Liangyuan is so disgusting," she actually framed Shen Liangdi. Caixia cleaned up the broken bowls on the ground and comforted her, "My lady, don't be angry." Concubine Su snorted, "How can I not be angry? I'm about to become a godmother. Chang Liangyuan is really stubborn. When the Queen and the Highness come back, I must deal with her well." Caixia nodded in agreement, "Let's wait for the Queen and the Highness to come back." "No, I want to go see Shen Liangdi." Concubine Su shook her handkerchief and walked out. Caixia had to put down the broken bowls, asked the little palace maid to clean them up, and trotted after them. When she met Tao Liangyuan on the way out, Concubine Su went to meet her. "Tao Liangyuan, have you heard about it?" Tao Liangyuan looked worried. "I just heard the news and wanted to go to Xiaoxiang Pavilion to take a look." Concubine Su threw her handkerchief, "Then let's go together, I'm about to have a heart attack." The two walked shoulder to shoulder towards Xiaoxiang Pavilion. Concubine Su said indignantly, "Hasn't Shen Liangdi's pregnancy been concealed very well? How did Chang Liangyuan find out? Shen Liangdi is favored by His Highness and the Queen. Chang Liangyuan is the Queen's niece. Seeing that her aunt is so concerned about others, she must be jealous. I guess she has been eyeing Shen Liangdi for a long time. After finding clues, she wants to frame her." Tao Liangyuan said faintly. Concubine Su rubbed her hands, "Chang Liangyuan is such a scheming woman, I really want to crush her to death." Tao Liangyuan patted Concubine Su, signaling her to stay calm. "Okay, let's see Shen Liangdi first." Concubine Su nodded, "Yes." When they arrived at the door of Xiaoxiang Pavilion, there were usually guards guarding it, and this time was no exception. The only difference was that the door of Xiaoxiang Pavilion was locked with an old copper lock. Concubine Su and Tao Liangyuan were stopped by two guards as soon as they walked in. "The Emperor has ordered that no one is allowed to visit Shen Liangdi." The cold tone, like an emotionless robot. Concubine Su said dissatisfiedly, "Shen Liangdi has not been convicted yet? Can't you just take a look?" The guard said coldly, "No." Tao Liangyuan took out a bag of silver from her sleeve and secretly put it into the guard's hand. "I just want to say a few words to Shen Liangdi, and then leave, okay?" The two guards looked at each other and nodded. "You have to leave after a few words." "Thank you." Tao Liangyuan pulled Concubine Su to the door and saw the lock on it. Concubine Su turned around and said to the guard, "Then open the door." "No, if you want to talk, just talk outside." The guard still had a cold tone. Tao Liangyuan pulled Concubine Su over. "Concubine Su, forget it, just talk outside." Concubine Su was a little dissatisfied. She had received the money, but she didn't even open the door, but she had no choice. Chengzi just came out of the room and saw someone outside the door. The fine silk clothes were obviously not the guards. When she walked over, she heard concubine Su shouting, "Chengzi, call Shenliangdi over quickly." Chengzi saw concubine Su nodding happily, "I'll go call my young lady now." After saying that, she turned around and ran in. At this time, Shen Shuwei was sleeping soundly and was awakened by Chengzi. "Young lady, concubine Su and Tao Liangyuan are here to see you." Shen Shuwei woke up all of a sudden, got up with the help of Chengzi, and went to the door. From a distance, she saw a hand reaching in from the crack of the door, and a small green handkerchief was waving in the air. Who else could it be except concubine Su? When Shen Shuwei approached, she heard concubine Su asking anxiously, "Shen Liangdi, how are you?" Shen Shuwei shook her head, "I'm fine, I'm just locked up, don't worry." "Shen Liangdi, you can rest assured to take care of your pregnancy. The emperor will definitely find out the truth and clear your name. The queen and the prince will be back soon, don't worry." Tao Liangyuan comforted. Shen Shuwei nodded vigorously, "Yeah, don't worry, I'm fine." Tao Liangyuan took out a bag of silver from her pocket and stuffed it into Shen Shuwei's hand. "I'll give you some cash, take care of anything." Money makes the world go round. Shen Shuwei was not polite. "Okay, I'll take it." Concubine Su wanted to say a few more words, and the cold voice of the guard behind her sounded, "Okay, it's time to go." "Then we'll go, you take good care of your baby." Concubine Su and Tao Liangyuan left Xiaoxiang Pavilion under the cold gaze of the guard. Chengzi looked at the silver in Shen Shuwei's hand. He had seen many examples of people taking advantage of others' misfortunes, gloating over others' misfortunes, and turning against each other in the palace. She couldn't help but sigh. It is said that a friend in need is a friend indeed. This is absolutely true. Concubine Su and Tao Liangyuan really treat the young master with all their heart. Shen Chu smiled, "I think so too." At this time in the imperial study, the emperor was reviewing the memorials. Finally, he simply put down the memorials in his hand and looked up at his son standing in front of the dragon case. If you continue like this, I will be angry." Xiao Jinyu turned the ink in his hand from time to time. He said aggrievedly, "But, father, if you do this, your son will not be able to sleep at night." The emperor asked thoughtfully, "Really?" "Of course, my nephew is still suffering." "Shouldn't your father?" P.S. 3 more updates. Spoiler alert, His Royal Highness the Crown Prince will be back soon. There is another chapter with 3,000 words, which will be updated before dinner. The promised explosion of updates is here. Don't look at the small number of chapters. There are many words in one chapter. If there are more chapters, a large chapter will be divided into 3 small chapters. So the main thing is to update the number of words, not the number of chapters. Please support me with monthly tickets and recommendation tickets. Good night. Bayazai. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The prince longs for me every night after mastering thought reading. Author, Gongzi Yun Si. Chapter 346. Before Xiao Jinyu finished speaking, he saw the emperor push the memorials in front of him. "That's perfect. I'm a little tired and want to rest. Since you can't sleep, you can review these memorials for me." When Xiao Jinyu saw the memorials, he immediately looked very sleepy. "Father, what, I'm suddenly very sleepy now, I'm very sleepy, I'll take my leave first." After saying that, he slipped away. The emperor saw his son running faster than a rabbit and snorted, "Stinky boy, can't I cure you?" Looking down at the pile of memorials in front of him, he thought of the queen going to the White Horse Temple. The emperor ordered, "Eunuch Li, change the tea." Yes, Eunuch Li stepped forward to take the teacup down and put a cup of new tea on the dragon table. After Xiao Jinyu came out, he ordered his personal guard to ride a fast horse to find the prince brother. After giving the order, Xiao Jinyu originally wanted to visit Shen Shuwei in Xiaoxiang Pavilion, but seeing that it was getting late, thinking that Shen Shuwei must have rested, he changed his mind and returned to Changqian Hall. As soon as he stepped into the bedroom, he saw Miss Han sitting there quietly. He found that as long as he came back late, Miss Han would sit there, holding a teacup in her hand, sipping slowly, quietly enough to be ignored, but that almost cold attitude made it impossible to ignore. "Miss Han, you haven't rested yet," Xiao Jinyu said as she walked over. Miss Han put down the teacup in her hand, raised her beautiful watery eyes and looked at Xiao Jinyu. "I'm waiting for you to come back." Xiao Jinyu sat down in front of Miss Han and poured herself a cup of tea. "Actually, you don't have to wait for me deliberately, you can rest first if you are tired." After saying that, he picked up the teacup and took 2 sips. Miss Han looked at Xiao Jinyu indifferently. "I'm not tired." Xiao Jinyu paused in drinking tea, raised her eyes and looked at Miss Han. Her eyes, the tea in her hand was neither drinkable nor not drinkable. Miss Han is really energetic. Miss Han was not modest, better than Prince Yu. Xiao Jinyu smiled awkwardly. Does he have no face? At this time, Qin Xiao was tied to the rack, with his arms spread out and tied separately, unable to move. He had been tortured several times, and his guard uniform had long been whipped into strips. The blood dried up and new blood flowed out. No matter how the prison boss whipped him, Qin Xiao didn't say a word. Several people took turns whipping him until they were tired in the middle of the night. "You bastard, my hands are sore, but you didn't say a word? Forget it, go to sleep, we'll continue tomorrow." With various tortures, I'm not afraid that he won't confess. After the jailer and several guards left, Qin Xiao raised his head. On his handsome face, there were crisscross marks of whips. His sword-like eyebrows were tightly furrowed, but he never said a word. The next day, Shen Shuwei heard the cheerful chirping of birds outside the window. She looked out the window and saw 2 magpies jumping and chirping happily on the branches. They were so happy. Seeing Chengzi coming in, she pointed at the magpies and said, "Chengzi, there are 2 magpies on the tree, and they are very loving." Hearing this, Chengzi put down the clothes in her hand and walked over. She looked out the window and saw 2 magpies chirping happily. "My lady, they say that when the magpies chirp in front of the door, good things will come." Chengzi rarely smiled. "Good things will definitely happen in the next 2 days." Shen Shuwei looked at the 2 magpies on the branches, with a sweet smile in her eyes. "I have a hunch too." At this time, a dark head suddenly appeared outside the window, with a tender and handsome face, and a pair of peach blossom eyes that were always smiling faintly. Xiao Jinyu smiled. "Sister-in-law, I'm here to see you." Shen Shuwei praised generously. "Prince Yu, you are so amazing. You came in without anyone noticing." Xiao Jinyu was quite proud. "Of course, don't you see who I am?" Chengzi seemed to have seen a savior. "Prince Yu, you are finally here. Has the emperor found out the truth? When did he release my young master?" Xiao Jinyu's face immediately became serious. "I haven't found out yet. My father was cuckolded a few days ago, and he is still angry. It is inevitable that he will be angry when encountering such a thing." Chengzi said indignantly, "But my young master has been pregnant for more than 5 months, but it was only discovered after His Highness left." "Of course I believe my sister-in-law." Xiao Jinyu looked at Shen Shuwei and comforted her. "Don't worry, sister-in-law, I have already notified my brother and sent people to the White Horse Temple to let my mother come back quickly. As for the 2 imperial doctors, I have also sent people to investigate. If they dare to frame sister-in-law, I will never let them off easily." Shen Shuwei was so moved that she said, "How could I have such a righteous and domineering uncle like you?" Xiao Jinyu was a little embarrassed by the praise. No, this is what I should do." Shen Shuwei solemnly promised, "I will give you more hugs when the baby is born." Xiao Jinyu's eyebrows curved with joy. Sister-in-law, this is what you said, you are not allowed to regret it. Shen Shuwei said firmly and affirmatively, no regrets, you can hold it as long as you want. Xiao Jinyu chuckled twice. Later, when Xiao Jinyu hugged his brother, he peed as soon as he was in his arms. When he hugged his sister, he vomited milk all over him. Chengzi thought of Qin Xiao still suffering in the prison, and she couldn't help asking, Prince Yu, how is Qin Xiao? When Qin Xiao was mentioned, Xiao Jinyu was stunned for a moment, because he had forgotten Qin Xiao. Chengzi saw that Xiao Jinyu didn't say anything, and thought Qin Xiao was in trouble. She asked in a trembling voice, is Qin Xiao tortured by the 10 tortures? Chengzi choked and couldn't say anything. When Xiao Jinyu saw Chengzi crying, he hurriedly explained, I was in a hurry to see my sister-in-law. I haven't taken care of Qin Xiao yet. I don't know what's going on with him now. Chengzi was not comforted by the words, but cried so hard that tears came out. Shen Shuwei also began to worry, Prince Yu, can you go to the prison to see Qin Xiao? When Xiao Jinyu saw Chengzi crying, he wondered what the relationship between Qin Xiao and Chengzi was. Why was he so sad for Qin Xiao? No problem, I'll go to the prison to see Qin Xiao later. Shen Shuwei lay on the couch, opened the cabinet door on the couch, took out the retractable handbag prepared in advance, and stuffed it into Xiao Jinyu's arms. There were several kinds of medicine in the retractable bag. Take these medicines to Qin Xiao, just in case. Okay, Xiao Jinyu took a bag of medicine and turned around and left. Xiao Jinyu came to the prison. Because it was summer, the smell was a bit bad. He opened his folding fan and covered his mouth and nose with the jailer and walked in. The jailer saw that the person coming was Prince Yu, and he came up to him with his hands clasped and his waist bowed, Prince Yu, this is the heavenly prison. You are of noble status, why are you here? Xiao Jinyu asked in a deep voice, where is Qin Xiao? The jailer said with a flattering smile, that bastard Qin Xiao has not confessed yet. He was just tortured. He is inside. Xiao Jinyu frowned, lead the way. The jailer said respectfully, Prince Yu, please follow me. Xiao Jinyu followed the jailer all the way inside. There were all kinds of torture instruments inside, and a strong smell of blood could be smelled. In summer, there was a charcoal basin burning inside, just like being in a big steamer. Qin Xiao sat in the corner, his hair was messy, and the clothes on his body could no longer be called clothes. There was a puddle of water where he was, which should be the cold water splashed after he fainted from the pain. The jailer kicked Qin Xiao with his foot and roared fiercely, get up quickly, Prince Yu is here to see you. Hiss, Qin Xiao groaned, slowly raised his head, and saw Xiao Jinyu. Before he could speak, Xiao Jinyu kicked the prison boss in front of him. Bang, the prison boss's body hit the wall, and he grimaced in pain. Xiao Jinyu's eyes were cold, do you need to talk nonsense in front of this king? The prison boss rolled over, yes, I was too talkative. Xiao Jinyu said coldly, why don't you get out? I will retreat now. The prison boss rolled out again. After everyone left, Xiao Jinyu took 2 quick steps to Qin Xiao, looking at his embarrassed appearance, he no longer had the high spirits of the past. Qin Xiao, how do you feel? King Yu, I'm fine. He hadn't drunk a drop of water for a day and a night, and his throat was dry and hoarse. This king looks at you, you don't look fine. Xiao Jinyu looked Qin Xiao up and down, and wanted to take him to take a bath, change clothes, and apply some medicine. But the matter had not been investigated clearly, so he couldn't take Qin Xiao away. Qin Xiao asked with difficulty, how is Shen Liangdi? Xiao Jinyu said, Shen Liangdi, don't worry. I'm here. I won't let my father touch her hair. Qin Xiao breathed a sigh of relief, that's good. Xiao Jinyu took out a bottle of water from his arms. This was given to him by Shen Shuwei. It was called glucose. Drink some water first. Qin Xiao was very thirsty at this time. He opened his mouth and drank a whole bottle of glucose. Then, Xiao Jinyu gave him a few pieces of chocolate, saying that it could quickly replenish his physical strength. Qin Xiao was so hungry at this time that he didn't mind that this thing was too sweet. He ate several pieces in a row and then drank some water. Xiao Jinyu took out medicine and applied powder to his wounds, which could stop bleeding and heal quickly. Hold on, my brother will be back soon. Qin Xiao regained some strength now. Don't worry about me, I will not let Shen Liangdi suffer this unjust accusation even if I die. Xiao Jinyu was somewhat relieved. You have to hold on, Shen Liangdi doesn't want anything to happen to you, and that Chengzi cried like a tearful person when she heard you were being tortured. Qin Xiao was stunned when he heard this. Really? Xiao Jinyu said affirmatively, of course, when have I ever lied to you? Qin Xiao pulled the corner of his mouth, and he grimaced in pain. Xiao Jinyu stuffed the telescopic bag in his hand into Qin Xiao's arms. Keep these things, just in case. Xiao Jinyu walked out, glanced at the people at the table, and warned, the emperor wants the truth, not a confession under torture. You can't afford to fail the emperor's edict. The jailer nodded and bowed tremblingly, I understand. Xiao Jinyu left with satisfaction. At this time, on the wide official road, several horses galloped towards the capital, raising a cloud of dust along the way. The one running in the front was the Crown Prince Xiao Jinyan. The prince longs for me every night after mastering thought reading. Author, Gongzi Yun Si. Chapter 347. Deep in the official road, the sound of horse hooves came from far away. Birds were frightened by the sound of horse hooves and flew high. Getting closer and closer, until a black horse was seen running towards them. Wei Qi raised his hand and signaled the people behind him to stop. Xiao Jinyan pulled the reins hard, and the horse raised its front hooves and neighed, then stopped steadily. The owner of the black horse also pulled the reins, then jumped off the horse, stepped forward a few steps and saluted, Your Highness, this is a letter from Prince Yu. Xiao Jinyan frowned when he learned that it was a letter from his brother. Did something happen? He picked up the letter and shook it open, glanced at the content of the letter, and a huge anger surged in his dark pupils. He clenched the letter in his hand, only to see the intact letter shattered into slag. Wei Qi found that his master's face was terribly gloomy. It was obviously summer, but he could feel the cold air pressure around his master. Master, what happened? Xiao Jinyan said coldly, Someone took advantage of my absence to attack Shen Liangdi. Wei Qi frowned, Who is so bold? How dare he touch Shen Liangdi? Xiao Jinyan was supposed to return to the capital 10 days ago, but he was delayed because he had something urgent to deal with. No need to rest on the way, Xiao Jinyan said, then he squeezed the horse's belly and raised the whip. The horse was as fast as an arrow. Wei Qi and others did not dare to delay and quickly followed. The queen who burned incense and prayed for blessings at the White Horse Temple ate vegetarian meals for several days. Thinking that her daughter-in-law and grandson were safe, she felt it was worth it. The queen, who had just finished reading the scriptures, couldn't eat a few bites of vegetarian food. Qingying walked in with a letter, Empress, Prince Yu has sent a letter. The queen smiled gently when she heard this, You've only been apart for a few days, and you're thinking of writing to me. Qingying also smiled and said, Prince Yu and the queen have a good relationship, and you're thinking of me so much after just a few days. Of course, Yu was brought up by me, so I have deep feelings for her. The queen smiled and couldn't wait to open the letter. When she saw the content of the letter, her face turned green with anger. In the letter, Xiao Jinyu described vividly how the emperor didn't listen to him and his explanations, making the queen feel as if she were there. Before she finished reading the letter, she wanted to rush in to protect her daughter-in-law. After reading the letter, the queen angrily slapped the table beside her, shaking the coffee table and making it buzz. The dog emperor doesn't even recognize his own grandson. Qingying saw the queen was furious and advised gently, "Queen, don't get angry. And my niece actually falsely accused Shen Liangdi of having an affair with the guard. How dare she? That's my grandson." Qingying couldn't help but get angry when she heard it. Chang Liangyuan too, how could she do such a thing? The queen was so angry. I was only away for a few days, and it caused such a big thing for me. Qingying comforted, "Queen, don't be angry, the emperor should not attack Shen Liangdi without knowing the truth." "I hope so," the queen ordered. "Qingying, get ready and return to the palace immediately. I will see who dares to touch my precious grandson." The queen, who was originally scheduled to return to the palace tomorrow, left the White Horse Temple in advance. Most of the people in the East Palace were waiting to watch the show, waiting for Shen Liangdi to be executed by the emperor. Everyone thought that Shen Liangdi was living a miserable life in Xiaoxiang Pavilion, and was in fear and anxiety every day. In fact, Xiaoxiang Pavilion was still full of the atmosphere of fireworks, and there was no fear. Although the food delivered by the imperial kitchen every day was either rotten or cabbage without oil and water. But the babies had a little uncle who loved them, and they would send some fresh pig's trotters, beef and pork every day. There were also fish, chickens, and ducks in Xiun Pavilion. Today, Xiao Jinyu carried fresh pork and climbed the wall neatly in front of the guards. The guards. "Prince you can come if you want, can you not climb the wall so blatantly? We are not blind." After delivering the pork, Xiao Jinyu returned the same way, jumped down from the wall, clapped his hands, and did not forget to comfort the guards, "You have worked hard." The guards. "Are you afraid that we don't know?" In fact, the guards told the emperor when Xiao Jinyu climbed the wall to deliver things for the first time. The emperor still knows his son. If he doesn't let him go, he will definitely think of other ways. So the guards can only turn a blind eye. After the truth is found out, no matter who pleads, it will be useless. And the news from the Tianlao said that Qin Xiao would not confess. The emperor frowned and said, "Continue the interrogation." The baby grew faster than usual, and his belly was bigger. This was discovered by Chengzi. Shen Chuwei said, "This is all your credit, Chengzi." Chengzi looked puzzled, "My lady, how did it become the credit of the slave?" Shen Chuwei said seriously, "Because Chengzi, you make braised pork and crystal elbows for the baby every day, so the baby grows fast." Chengzi. She should have thought that she could never keep up with the little master's brain circuit. Shen Chuwei said with a smile on her face, "Chengzi, the baby said he wanted to eat roast duck tonight." Chengzi looked at her little master's righteous appearance, and really used all kinds of excuses and reasons. She said she missed His Highness when she didn't give her food a few days ago. Now the babies have become her reason to want to eat again. Can she say no? Of course not. Chengzi asks Xiao Gaiza to catch a very fat duck and throw it over the wall to Xiaoxiang Pavilion, and then let the little rabbit take care of it. Chengzi was responsible for marinating and roasting. For dinner, Shen Chuwei ate roast duck as she wished, and sucked her fingers with great satisfaction. "How many ducks are there in Xiun Pavilion?" Chengzi said, "My lady, the big ones are gone, only the small ones are left." Shen Chuwei nodded, "Then let's eat roast chicken next time." Chengzi. Shen Chuwei said, "The little ducks must also work hard to grow up and lay eggs." Chengzi, "No matter how hard they work, they can't keep up with the speed at which you eat them." At night. Concubine Su hadn't seen Shen Chuwei for 2 days and 3 nights, and felt that her life had lost a lot of fun. She knew that Shen Chuwei was greedy, and now that she was imprisoned, she must have lived a worse life than before, so she was afraid that she would be hungry and thin, and the baby would grow slowly. Just when Concubine Su was worried and anxious, the man in black who had been missing for a long time appeared. His slender figure appeared in front of Concubine Su so unexpectedly. Concubine Su was stunned at first, and didn't expect the man in black to come again. But when she thought that he didn't keep his word and slipped away, she was a little dissatisfied. "What are you doing here?" The man in black came over and sat down in front of Concubine Su. He took a teacup and poured himself a cup of cold tea. "Come here when you want to." The man in black had a pleasant and somewhat scattered voice. Concubine Su was furious when she heard this. "Do you think this is your home? Come here whenever you want." The man in black took 2 sips of tea calmly. "As long as you have good kung fu, you can enter the palace at will." Concubine Su. The prince longs for me every night after mastering thought reading. Author, Gongzi Yun Si. Chapter 348. The man in black continued to drink tea and looked up at Concubine Su, only to see her almond-shaped eyes staring at him. He stopped drinking tea. "What's wrong?" Concubine Su didn't want to talk to the man in black, otherwise he would think that she was easy to bully. The man in black looked at Concubine Su and turned her head away from him. 4 words were written on her beautiful face: "I'm angry." After getting along for a while, the man in black could still see Concubine Su's temperament, and whatever was on her mind would appear on her face. With this temperament, it is easy to suffer losses in the palace. You can probably guess why she was angry. "If you don't say anything, I'll leave." The man in black put down the teacup in his hand, stood up and left. Concubine Su turned around when she heard this and hurriedly called him, "Stop." The man in black stopped and looked sideways at Concubine Su. The corners of his lips hidden under the black scarf raised a slight smile. "Is something wrong?" When Su Fangfei saw the delicious snacks on the table, she thought that the black-clothed martial arts were good, and she would be able to easily enter Xiaoxiang Pavilion. She raised her eyes and looked at the man in black. "Can you do me a favor?" The man in black asked. "What are you doing?" Concubine Su said straight to the point. "Shen Liangdi is imprisoned in Xiaoxiang Pavilion. I can't get in. Can you help me bring some food in?" The man in black nodded. "Okay." Concubine Su then smiled and started packing delicious food. She also asked Caixia to bring the abalone and shark fin, braised venison, steamed sea bass, that could not be sent out. The man in black stood in front of the Peach Blossom Girls' round table, watching the scene of Concubine Su packing delicious food, which was an eye-opener. A whole bag of food, and an extra-large food box. Concubine Su pointed at those 2 things and said solemnly, "Please." The man in black didn't say anything, and left with a neat window tilt in one hand. Concubine Su ran a few steps to the window. She looked at the strong figure of the man in black, jumping forward wantonly among the pavilions, and suddenly felt envious of the man in black's kung fu. If she had known earlier, she would have learned martial arts from her brothers when she was young, so that she could come and go freely in the palace. At this time, Xiaoxiang Pavilion was so quiet that only the chirping of insects and the rustling of leaves in the wind could be heard. In ancient times, dinner was eaten early. 2 hours later, Shen Shuwei woke up from hunger. There was only 1 candle lit in the room, and the furnishings in the room could be vaguely seen. "I can survive anything, but I can't survive going to bed hungry." Shen Chu touched his round belly slightly and said comfortingly, "Don't worry, I won't let you go hungry." After saying that, he opened the quilt and got up to look for something to eat. Before she could put on her shoes, she saw a slender and tall figure in the room. It was obvious that the figure was a man. The man was carrying 2 large packages in his hands. Shen Shuwei subconsciously thought that a thief came to Xiaoxiang Pavilion. No, it was a gangster. The thief had no ability to enter the palace and steal. What's wrong with stealing? He actually stole food. It's just that Shen Shuwei doesn't dare to act rashly now. He has 2 babies in his belly and can't take risks. So Shen Shuwei just sat motionless on the bed. When the man in black came in, he noticed that Shen Chu was slightly awake. He went straight to the round table and placed the food on the table one by one. Then he looked at Shen Shuwei, who was sitting motionless on the bed. "This is what Concubine Su asked me to bring." When Shen Shuwei heard that Concubine Su had sent it, she got out of bed and said, "Oh, it turns out it's one of our own. It scared me to death." Man in black. Shen Shuwei felt that the candles in the room were not bright enough, so she lit a few more. Then she couldn't wait to open the food box and took out the delicacies one by one and placed them on the table. "Smelling the fragrance makes me even hungrier." Shen Shuwei ignored the presence of the man in black, picked up the venison with chopsticks and ate it. It was so delicious. "I didn't expect Concubine Su to have a bodyguard with such strong martial arts skills as you." The man in black looked at Shen Shuwei's appearance while eating, feeling a vague sense of familiarity, probably because they looked similar. Shen Shuwei didn't hear the man in black's response, thinking that the man in black might be a cold and taciturn person, so he didn't care. "Thank you Concubine Su for me." The man in black nodded, "Yeah." Shen Shuwei continued to eat the venison, then picked up a piece of delicious fish and put it into his mouth to eat. Realizing that the man in black had no intention of leaving, he asked, "Did Concubine Su have something you want you to bring to me?" The man in black shook his head, "No." "All right." Shen Shuwei ate another abalone, which tasted good. After eating, Shen Shuwei took a few sips of herbal tea leisurely, and then looked at the man in black, only to see him flip out of the window neatly. Early the next morning, in the prison, Qin Xiao suffered 3 days of torture, and he would have been dying a long time ago. Because Xiao Jinyu would bring him medicine every day, and at night when no one was around, he would secretly apply medicine to himself. 3 meals a day consisted of sour steamed buns, and there was no saliva. The water Qin Xiao drinks every day is glucose. Tonight, the food was surprisingly good, with meat and fish, and it was also very clean. Generally, if you can eat such a meal in prison, you know that you are not far away from death. A meal without a head. Qin Xiao was startled at first, but then he realized that he hadn't confessed yet, and hadn't even beaten him into submission, so he couldn't be decapitated. It couldn't have been arranged by King Yu. The food had not improved when King Yu came these 2 days. If the food suddenly improved, you would know something was wrong. However, Qin Xiao, who had not eaten for 3 days, couldn't help but swallowed and wanted to eat when he saw the fragrant food. Probably only at this time can he understand why Shen Liangdi loves to eat so much. After just hesitating for a while, Qin Xiao picked up the rice bowl, picked up the chopsticks, and started eating. Outside the cell door, the jailer who delivered the meal saw Qin Xiao eating, and then turned around and left. Qin Xiao raised his eyes and glanced outside the cell door, and took out a small bottle from the haystack. King Yu sent it, saying that it was a potion prepared by Shen Liangdi himself, which could detoxify hundreds of poisons. In this way, Qin Xiao had a delicious hot meal for the first time in 3 days and regained a lot of strength. Dead of night. When the jailer came in, he saw the empty bowl, and then looked at Qin Xiao lying on the haystack. He stepped forward and took a breath, and found that there was no breath at all, so he left the prison with peace of mind. Before dawn, Chang Liangyuan looked in front of the bronze mirror, her hair tied with the fragrance of huaixiang. The young eunuch bowed and walked in, reporting, "My lord, the matter has been settled. Qin Xiao committed suicide out of fear of crime." Hearing this, Chang Liangyuan's lips curled up into a proud smile. Qin Xiao committed suicide out of fear of his crime, and Shen Liangdi couldn't wash himself away even if she jumped into the Yellow River. The queen is not here, and neither is his highness. Shen Liangdi, you are doomed. The first ray of sunshine in the morning shines on the window sill, and the jade blooms brighter than usual against the rising sun. Xue Tuan squatted on the bed, scratching Shen Shuwei's hand with its fluffy paws, trying to wake her up. At the same time, at the gate of Xiaoxiang Pavilion, Xiao Jinyan, who rushed back day and night, came to Xiaoxiang Pavilion as soon as possible after returning to the palace, but was stopped outside by the imperial guards. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The prince longs for me every night after mastering thought reading. Author, Gongzi Yun Si. Chapter 349. The two guards were blocking him on the left and right, like sculptures, not giving in at all. Your Highness, the Emperor has ordered that no one is allowed to visit Shenliangdi. The Praetorian guards only obey orders and speak to the Emperor, no matter who is in front of them. Xiao Jinyan's phoenix eyes flashed with fierce murderous intent. Get out of my way. Your Highness, Your Majesty. Before the Imperial Guard finished speaking, he was kicked away by Xiao Jinyan. Upon seeing this, the other Imperial Guards stepped forward one after another, but were stopped by Wei Qi and others. Xiao Jinyan averted his eyes and went straight to the door. He looked at the old lock on the door, took out the sword from his waist, clicked twice, and the lock cracked. After putting the sword back into its scabbard, he kicked open the door hard. Two loud noises of bang bang startled the little rabbit. When he saw His Highness returning, he hurriedly stepped forward to greet him. Your Highness, may you be blessed and safe. Chengzi, who was in the small kitchen, heard the loud noise and ran out in surprise. What happened? Before she finished speaking, Chengzi saw His Highness in the courtyard and came forward to salute in surprise. Your Highness, you are back. Xiao Jinyan looked at Chengzi with her phoenix eyes. Where is Shenliangdi? Chengzi said excitedly, back to your Highness, the young master is still sleeping in the room. Xiao Jinyan looked at the sky. Xiaju always snoozed, so it was normal for him to be sleeping now. He strode towards the back room. Chengzi looked at Xiao Jinyan's slender figure and was still excited. His Highness was finally back, and the young master would no longer suffer unjust injustice. Chengzi happily went to the small kitchen to continue working. Zhang Xiang, who was sleeping slightly at the beginning, was constantly harassed by Xuetuan. If she hadn't been so sleepy, she would have wanted to get up and close the door behind Xuetuan to disturb her dream. Xuetuan blinked his big innocent eyes and turned to look at the door when he heard the footsteps. Xiao Jinyan slowly opened the door and walked in. The room was so quiet that only the birds chirping outside the window could be heard. When Xuetuan saw Xiao Jinyan, who had been away for a while, he shouted happily, take a look. Xiao Jinyan ignored Xuetuan. He looked at the person on the bed and saw that her eyes were closed, her face was slightly red, and she was sleeping soundly. In summer, Shen Chuwei dressed coolly, wearing only a suspender top and shorts underneath. The thin quilt on her body had already been rolled aside by her. He took a few steps forward, stretched out his hand, picked up the snowball and threw it onto the couch aside. Xuetuan let out a wow and rolled its limp body twice on the couch before settling down. It glared at Xiao Jinyan dissatisfied, accusing him of mistreating pets. Xiao Jinyan didn't even look at Xuetuan. He sat down on the edge of the bed and looked at the sleeping person. His spotless hands came to her fair face and pushed the hair from her temples behind her ears. Without the interruption of Xuetuan, Shen Chuwei fell into a deeper sleep, not even knowing that there was someone sitting on the bed. Xiao Jinyan saw that Shen Chuwei hadn't woken up yet, and it was nearly 5 months since they were separated. Although he wanted to talk to her, he couldn't bear to wake her up. His eyes moved down to her belly. Although the top was loose, it still couldn't cover her round belly. There, they were giving birth to their children, 2 of them. Xiao Jinyan stared at that belly for a long time, feeling very magical. He didn't expect that he would become a father so early. Because there is no such thing in his life plan. Until he met Xiaju, his life plan became more complete. The pain of lovesickness cannot be relieved by just a few glances. Xiao Jinyan looked at it for a while, then stood up and walked out. Outside the door, Wei Qi had already dealt with the imperial guards and was waiting in the yard. Xiao Jinyan ordered, "Wei Qi, take people to the prison." I obey. Wei Qi took a few people directly to Tianlao to visit his brother Qin Xiao. Xiao Jinyan strode towards the imperial study room. At this time, Xinlan Palace. Huaixiang trotted in, "Little master, your highness is back." Chang Liangyuan was startled when she heard this, and she couldn't believe that Xiao Jinyan was back so soon. "How do you know?" "Someone saw his highness in the East Palace and heard that he went directly to Xiaoxiang Pavilion," Huaixiang said. Chang Liangyuan didn't expect that Xiao Jinyan came back today and went directly to Xiaoxiang Pavilion. Xiao Jinyan probably wanted to protect Shen Shuwei. Thinking of this possibility, Chang Liangyuan began to worry. "I want to go to Xiaoxiang Pavilion to find his highness." Huaixiang responded, "Here." When Chang Liangyuan went to Xiaoxiang Pavilion, she met Xiao Jinyan at a fork in the road. "We haven't seen him for 5 months, and it feels like we haven't seen him for a long time." After leading troops in the war for 5 months, Xiao Jinyan's complexion turned wheatish, but his face was still unparalleledly handsome. Chang Liangyuan greeted him and said, "Your Highness, you are back." Xiao Jinyan looked at Chang Liangyuan coldly. In the past, he was a little more courteous to this cousin out of consideration for his mother-in-law and uncle. Unexpectedly, Chang Liangyuan, who looks gentle and generous on the surface, is also very scheming and vicious. If he hadn't just come back and didn't have any evidence, he would have dealt with Chang Liangyuan now. "Chang Liangyuan, I know everything about what Shen Liangdi did. I will settle this account with you later." "Your Highness, what do you mean by this?" Chang Liangyuan choked with grievance. "I know that your Highness loves Shen Liangdi, but Shen Liangdi does not follow the rules of women and has an affair with the guard." Before he finished speaking, Xiao Jinyan slapped him in the face. Bang! Chang Liangyuan covered her face, raised her head and looked at Xiao Jinyan in disbelief. This was the first time Xiao Jinyan had done something to her. Xiao Jinyan's voice was cold. "Don't think that you are the niece of the Queen Mother. With the support of your uncle, I dare not do anything to you. If you touch my bottom line, I will do it to you." Chang Liangyuan was frightened by these cold and emotionless eyes. Qin Xiao was dead. As long as she refused to admit it, nothing would happen. Chang Liangyuan cried, "Your Highness, I am doing this for your own good. You were just bewitched by Shen Liangdi. As the saying goes, good advice is unpleasant to the ear. As long as it is for your Highness, I don't care what your Highness thinks of me." Xiao Jinyan sneered, "You said it so high-soundingly, but you are just for the position of Crown Princess." "Crown Princess? Don't even think about it in this life." After leaving a cold word, Xiao Jinyan strode away, not wanting to look at Chang Liangyuan anymore. Chang Liangyuan looked at Xiao Jinyan's back as he left, biting her lips tightly, her eyes full of unwillingness and resentment. If it were any other man, he would have been furious when he learned about this, but Xiao Jinyan was not like that. Xiao Jinyan didn't believe what she said at all, but believed that bitch Shen Shuwei. If Xiao Jinyan tried his best to protect Shen Shuwei and said that the child was his, what if the emperor believed it? Then wouldn't her plan for so long be in vain in the end? Huaixiang looked at Chang Liangyuan's face, which was swollen from being beaten, and felt a little distressed. "My lady, the prince is also, why did he beat you?" Chang Liangyuan thought of the queen, and now only the queen could be persuaded, so it would be useless for Xiao Jinyan to protect Shen Liangdi. "Huaixiang, get ready, I'm going to see the queen." Huaixiang looked at Chang Liangyuan in confusion. "Isn't the queen in the White Horse Temple? The prince longs for me every night after mastering thought reading." Author, Gongzi Yun Si. Chapter 350. I just want to go to the White Horse Temple and let my aunt see my face so that she can make the decision for me. Then I will prepare it right away. Huaixiang had just taken 2 steps when she was stopped by Chang Liangyuan, Don't say I'm going to the White Horse Temple, just say I'm going home to visit my mother. Because of the contributions of her father and brothers, she has a chance to go home to visit her family once a year. Otherwise, she cannot leave the palace without the permission of His Highness. Huaixiang agreed and went to prepare. Imperial Study. Xiao Jinyan looked up at the three big characters Imperial Study written on the plaque above his head. He hadn't set foot here for almost 5 months, and the Imperial Study was still the same as before. Eunuch Li, I want to see my father. Your Highness, I will go in and report it now. Eunuch Li walked in with a smile. Your Majesty, His Highness the Crown Prince is back, Eunuch Li said with a smile. The Emperor was frowning because of a memorial, and he was a little surprised to hear this, because the Crown Prince had encountered something in his letter and would be back 10 days later. The Emperor was still happy to come back early now. Let the prince in quickly. Yes. After Eunuch Li left, Xiao Jinyan walked in. He stepped forward to greet him. Your son pays respect to your father, may your father be blessed with good health. The Emperor showed a happy look on his face. Prince, you won the battle this time, and you have made an indelible contribution. Thank you for your hard work. Xiao Jinyan said modestly, Your Majesty, you are too kind. It is all because of your good teaching in the past. The Emperor laughed happily. The prince has been traveling all the way, he should be tired, go back and rest first, and we will talk about anything tomorrow. Xiao Jinyan said, Thank you for your understanding, only your son has something urgent to say now. The Emperor nodded, Tell me about it. Xiao Jinyan said, Your Majesty, Chang Liangyuan falsely accused Shen Liangdi of having an affair with the guards and plotting to murder the heir. She is scheming and vicious. This woman is not worthy of living in the East Palace. You are told you the Emperor used an affirmative tone. Your Majesty, it was Prince Yu who wrote to inform me. Xiao Jinyan did not deny it, because there was no need to deny it. The Emperor knew that his son could not control his temper and wrote to inform the prince. Since the prince already knows about this, he should thoroughly investigate it. I asked the imperial doctors to check Shen Liangdi's pulse, and they all showed that she had been pregnant for more than 4 months. Prince, you have been away from the palace for almost 5 months. Do you think this child is yours? Xiao Jinyan said firmly, Father, if I can't even figure out my own child, how can I be qualified to be the prince? The Emperor's voice sank, Prince, I'm not saying anything about you, you only favor Shen Liangdi, and you believe everything she says. Your mother is the same, she was fooled by Shen Liangdi. Xiao Jinyan raised his head and looked at the Emperor, Father, it's you who was fooled. The Emperor's eyes turned cold, what did you say? Xiao Jinyan took out a letter from his arms and said, Father, this is the letter I received when I first arrived at the military camp. It was written by the eunuch I arranged to be with Shen Liangdi. At the beginning, I arranged Xiao Tuzi to be with Xiaju because I was afraid that she, a person with no status and no background, would be bullied by someone. If there is anything, Xiao Tuzi can tell him the first time. The Emperor looked at the letter in the prince's hand with a puzzled look. What letter? Is it related to Shen Liangdi's pregnancy? Xiao Jinyan stepped forward and presented the letter with both hands. The Emperor took the letter and opened it, and looked at the contents of the letter carefully. Xiao Jinyan explained, This is the letter written by the little rabbit when Shen Liangdi was pregnant for the first time and sent to the military camp. It's been almost 5 months, and neither the paper nor the words look like they were just written. The specific time of writing the letter is right in the corner, so the letter is real. The Emperor asked in confusion, why did the imperial physician say that Shen Liangdi has been pregnant for more than 4 months? I asked 2 imperial physicians to diagnose Shen Liangdi's pulse. Xiao Jinyan, Father, the imperial physician who diagnosed Shen Liangdi's pulse said that Shen Liangdi was weak and cold and it was not easy for her to conceive, but Shen Liangdi is already pregnant, which shows that the imperial physician's words cannot be fully trusted. As for why the imperial physician said so, We will know after checking. The emperor clenched the letter in his hand when he heard it, and seemed a little unbelievable. The imperial physicians in the imperial hospital were like this, one or two. How could it be? Eunuch Li, arrest the 2 imperial physicians that day and interrogate them carefully. Make sure to find out the truth of the matter. Yes. Eunuch Li was about to leave when Xiao Jinyu strode in. Prince Yu. Eunuch Li lowered his eyebrows and nodded. Xiao Jinyu strode in. Seeing the prince brother whom he had not seen for a long time, his peach blossom eyes curved, and then he stepped forward to greet, "Father." The emperor asked, "Why are you here?" Xiao Jinyu said, "Of course, I came here to report something to my father." Xiao Jinyan and Xiao Jinyu looked at each other and understood that his brother had found out. I didn't expect his brother to find out this matter in these 2 days. The emperor snorted, "What can you do? I have already checked the 2 imperial doctors. Imperial Dr. Nian owed a favor to General Chang, and he was old and would retire in 2 days. He dared to be so bold and deliberately said April instead of May. The purpose was to make my father think that the child Shen Liangdi was pregnant with was not of royal blood. Imperial Dr. Feng was brought up by Imperial Dr. Nian's apprentice. Imperial Dr. Nian had a teacher's favor to him, so he said what his master said." Xiao Jinyu said. The emperor was stunned at first. He didn't expect that who usually only knew how to play, would find out. "Do you have evidence?" "Of course," Xiao Jinyu ordered, "let those 2 bastards in." Then, the guards escorted the 2 imperial doctors that day in. The imperial doctors were trembling with fear and saluted the emperor. Xiao Jinyu snorted, "Tell the truth quickly, or your heads will be in danger." The imperial doctors agreed. "Your Majesty, I am guilty and confused, please spare my life." The 2 imperial doctors were frightened by Xiao Jinyu and their words were trembling. In fact, the 2 imperial doctors did not take the pulse seriously at that time, because Chang Liangyuan said it was 4 months, they said it was 4 months. Now the truth is out, the emperor's face is a little ugly, he slammed the table angrily, "Come on, take them to the prison." After the guards came in and dragged the 2 imperial doctors away. The emperor ordered again, "Let Chang Liangyuan come to see me." Eunuch Li hurried to Xinlan Palace to call people, but when he went there, he found out that Chang Liangyuan had returned to her parents' home and hurried back again. "Your Majesty, Chang Liangyuan has returned to her parents' home." Xiao Jinyu said indignantly, "She has to return to her parents' home at this time, father, Chang Liangyuan must have done it on purpose." No matter what Chang Liangyuan does, he still has to consider the face of the queen and General Chang. The emperor frowned and thought for a moment, "It's not appropriate to go to the general's mansion to arrest people now. Eunuch Li, you send someone to pick up Chang Liangyuan." Although Chang Liangyuan's behavior is very hateful, Shen Liangdi is pregnant, which is also a happy event. Xiao Jinyan said again, "Father, my son's personal guard Qin Xiao was arranged by my son to deliver daily necessities to Shen Liangdi in the East Palace before leaving, so he can go in and out of Xiaoxiang Pavilion. He is still imprisoned in Tianlao." The emperor heard this and ordered, "Qin Xiao is acquitted." P.S. Second update. I'm a little busy these 2 days, so I'll update 2 chapters temporarily, and I'll update more. May 1st is hot, babies, please vote for the monthly ticket. Please recommend votes. There will be more updates at the beginning of the month. Good night, babies.